Madam Clerk, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the special meeting on September 6, 2017. It's an emergency meeting. I'm Robin DeSabatino, acting chair. This is information regarding Hurricane Irma, and we have Mr. Bob Smith here to fill us in on what's happening over at the Emergency Ops Center. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Smith, Director of Public Safety. What you have before you this morning is a resolution to declare a local state of emergency for Manatee County in preparation for any potential impacts from Hurricane Irma. As most of you are aware, the governor has already declared a state of emergency at the state level. Several counties from central Florida south have either already made declarations or will be making declarations over the course of the day today. And so here's what we have so far with the PowerPoint. So this is a shot of Hurricane Irma as of last night. You'll see that it is a very powerful storm, very well defined with a very well-defined eye. As of last night, it was a Category 5 hurricane with sustained wind speeds of 185 miles an hour. It was located about 130 miles east of the Leeward Islands, which puts it a little over 1,400 miles east of Miami. It was moving at a speed of about 15 miles an hour on a track that puts it west-northwest over the coming days. This was the track as of last night. If you have seen this morning's track, you'll know that the 2 p.m. Sunday marker, that M on this slide, that's just below, just at about the Keys, it's now kicked up a little bit farther north and a little bit east. And then there is an additional marker now for 2 a.m. on Monday, which puts it at about Lake Okeechobee. So it's the models have advanced since this particular slide was put together late last night. What we know so far as of daybreak this morning, they're calling for the potential for up to 9 feet of storm surge. The last specific number they gave us was 8.7 feet of storm surge. They're calling for the potential of between 10 and 15 inches of rain from central to South Florida. And obviously, there's the potential for strong hurricane force winds. The thing to remember about Irma, regardless of which way the path kicks over the next couple days, the storm itself is a little over 400 miles wide. The tropical storm force windshield, which is the area of the storm that has the tropical storm winds, is a little over 300 miles wide. The hurricane force windshield, which is the area that has hurricane force winds, is a little over 100 miles wide. So even pretty significant deviation over the next couple of days, we're still have the potential to receive hurricane force winds and the even greater potential to receive tropical storm force winds over the coming days. And obviously with any hurricane or tropical storm, you have a substantial amount of rainfall, which in addition to the rain we've already received over the recent days, could be causing us problems through the weekend and into early next week. This is a list of the counties who have, near us, who have either already declared or will be declaring today, to give you an idea of what some of our neighbors are doing in this area. And obviously for us, our biggest consideration over the next couple of days will be the potential for evacuation. With storm surge at about 9 feet, we evacuate for storm surge. We don't evacuate for wind. So at about 9 feet, we're looking at a level A evacuation. I realize the map on the slide is not real good on detail, but you all have in front of you a copy of our hurricane guide. This map appears in it. Basically, the area that's shaded in red on this map is the area we're referring to when we say a level A evacuation. The consideration for evacuations is how much time it takes to get people out. The goal is to initiate evacuations far enough in advance that we have everyone out, or at least the majority of folks out, prior to the arrival of tropical storm force winds. If the storm continues on its current track, as of daybreak this morning, we were looking to start receiving tropical storm force winds early Saturday morning. So we would initiate evacuations, again, if the storm continues on its current path, early Friday morning, to give everyone the chance to get out ahead of those winds. It takes about 10 to 17 hours to evacuate Levelway in Manatee County. We're factoring into that the fact that a lot of the counties south of us will already be evacuating. Some of them are evacuating starting today, moving north, which means there are going to be traffic problems on the interstates and problems getting north. So we're factoring in additional time to allow people to compensate for that traffic problem. Levelway in Manatee County is a little over 50,000 people. With a Levelway evacuation comes a countywide evacuation for mobile home parks. That gives us an additional 40-some thousand. For a little over 100,000 people, we'd have to evacuate in about 24 hours. Obviously, the goal is for folks to evacuate, get out, head north, head to a safer location, and use public shelters only as a last resort. We have south of us, Region 6 has a deficit of shelters already, even before this storm. So we have requests from the state for the potential to host folks who are moving south. We would not do that until we have made sure all of our own citizens have shelter. But if that comes forward, we'll make sure that everybody's aware of that ahead of time. But again, it wouldn't happen until we know we have sheltered all of the Manatee County citizens before we open a host shelter. Sarasota County is evacuating and sheltering starting on Friday, pretty much the same time we are. Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties, schools are going to be closed on Thursday and Friday for sheltering, and they're looking to start evacuations tomorrow. And that's it on the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I just want to let the public know we have Commissioner Johnson on the phone as well. He's joining us, and Commissioner Trace will be going to the Emergency Ops Center at 9:30 for the same briefing. And any commissioners have any questions or comments?
Well, I mean,
Mr. Smith?
Madam Chair, this don't tell me anything about government offices. Are we gonna open Friday? Are we gonna be open Monday?
Right.
If you're talking about 100,000 people getting ready to leave Manatee County, you will not be able to get anywhere Friday. If it's coming Monday, certainly we're not gonna have anybody out trying to get to this building, so we need to have some clarification in this meeting. You're looking at 100,000 people. They're just finding out about this. Some gonna try to get on the road as of tomorrow, probably, most likely. Moving to what direction, we have no idea, which most likely will shut down both bridges, north and west, and south. So we've got to make some decision in this meeting, unless it's going to be an update. Are we to the update meeting, or what's going on?
So the briefing this morning is going to be the exact same briefing that you just received at the EOC. You're free to participate, but there's no need for you to be there. What we'll be doing, you're absolutely right, there's still a great deal of uncertainty until probably later today as to where landfall is and the course of the storm after landfall. What we'll need to do is we'll call a policy group meeting, which is where we bring the heads together, leadership together, and make those decisions about school closings, county government closings, and things like that. But until the storm gets a little bit closer and we have a little more certainty from the National Hurricane Center, we can't make those decisions quite yet. So
I believe you said 24 hours notice or something like that. Okay, it's Wednesday now. And 24 hours is pretty close if you're talking about people leaving Friday. I know most gas stations this morning was no gas. I filled up last night, so I don't know how we're gonna continue waiting on the possibility of 24 hours when we're at Wednesday, and tomorrow it's actually 24 hours if you're leaving Friday.
Well, the winds would start Saturday morning.
Yeah, but I think you said you're going to, you asked, they may have to evacuate before Saturday.
Friday morning, correct.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 100,000 people moving. And let's say just 70% leave, you're talking about 70,000 people leaving. That'll be total chaos with people trying to get back and forth, got to take care of their loved ones, their children, and I don't know what the school board's going to do. So is there going to be an update decision made on government closing of buildings, specifically this building and whatever other building the constitutional officers want to decide to close with the safety of their employees? That's what I'm looking at.
Absolutely. We'll be meeting with the school board this morning to talk about using the schools as shelters. We have the liaison from the school board that comes to the EOC and meets with us. We'll be having those discussions this morning. Then we'll come back and provide recommendations for when, if schools are closed and county government's closed.
I got a follow-up question, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. Also, we're looking at just mobile home parks, but every commissioner up here is fully aware. We got other flood zones in Manatee County that may be in worse of shape than the mobile homes for its flooding. I can think of Rabonia, I can think of out in Lakewood Ranch, certain areas too that I've seen that. So we need to be a little more open, I think, than encouraging people to evacuate versus specifically just saying the mobile home case there is a disaster and we found out that people should have left.
Absolutely. There's going to come a point, probably at some point today, as the storm gets a little more, the track gets a little more certain, we're going to start recommending people evacuate whether they are in a level A evacuation area or in a mobile home park. We do have still some areas, because of the water we've received recently, that we're going to get some flooding with just the minimal amount of rain. So the level A helps us get the people we know are going to flood, beyond a shadow of a doubt, based on forecast predictions and history. Get them out and get them safe. That allows us to focus our efforts on the other areas where there could be potential flooding or where we know there will be flooding because of the recent rains.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Whitmore?
Okay, I live in a level A. There has to be a process. So there has to be a process so that we don't choke up the roads. And for those of us that have been through it, and you have, Charles, I had to do a mandatory evacuation years ago. I've been through 4 in 1 year, and you have 2 when I think you were on the city.
Yeah.
There has to be a process. We just have to, our employees are gonna tighten down the county and get everything in order, like they always has. There is a process, as you know, at the EOC. And our county, once we do this declaration, that will give them the authority to close down what they need. But if you just say, everybody get out now, you know, the roads are all gonna be closed. Key West is, I think they are asking, they're having the tourists leave first. The mayor last night, Amanda Maria, called me. And then they're gonna do the residents, and they're all heading this way. So we have to have an orderly process, correct?
Correct. That's the biggest concern right now, that the counties south of us will initiate evacuation. Some of them are already evacuating, and they'll be staging evacuations over the course of the next couple of days, which is part of why we extended our evacuation period a little bit earlier to factor in those counties south of us that will be coming through the county at about the time we'll be evacuating.
Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, and thanks for that, because that, you know, if you're on the MPO, you know, I mean, we've talked about evacuation processes and how difficult they are for us, because the evacuations take place, as you said, further south, and then the interstate is clogged, and, wow, it's getting loud. So it's a major problem for Manatee, and one that I can tell you that I know, I've been working with FDOT on that, because we need to do something to find other ways to get out of Manatee County other than 75. So that is a major concern. I mean, I understand other people, other counties south of us evacuating first. I get it, but, you know, we've got to look out for ours too, and it's a major problem. So please, Mr. Smith, keep that in your thoughts when you're setting up evacuation for Manatee. We need to start sooner rather than later, so we can get our citizens to safety. Also, I'm curious as to, you had mentioned, the governor had talked about helping other counties, I'm assuming south, that don't have enough shelters in place. Can you share with us what counties they might be, so that?
It would depend on the track of the storm. So what happens is, once the storm's track is certain and we're not going to be impacted, then they would call and say, the storm, it's basically exactly what happened with Matthew. Once it was determined we were going to get skirted and our shelters were going to be available, we got a call from the state to say, can you make 2 host shelters available? And at that point, we contact the school board and say, we need to make 2 host shelters available. What 2 schools would you like for us to use? And
So then it's not that we know that there are counties that don't have enough shelters
Well,
at
we
this
know that
point.
there-
It depends on the evacuation and what's taken.
Right. Well, we know for sure that the region immediately south of us has a shortage of shelters, and they have for quite some time. So we know they're going to be short of shelters. And
Lee and Charlotte?
Lee and Charlotte County?
Lee, Charlotte, all of those south of us, they just have a shortage of shelters. It's just the number of schools versus the amount of population. We know they're short. What we won't know is where the storm's going to go. If the storm skirts them, they could potentially become host shelters. If it skirts us, we could potentially be host shelters. So it's a lot of uncertainty at this point.
Okay. Also, you know, I am concerned about gas. I mean, I can tell you, I've been in Sarasota the last 2 or 3 days with my oldest granddaughter, and gas is near impossible. So I do know that Port Manatee, you know, has the gas lines and helps to, that'll help some of the gas stations here locally. But also water, I can tell you yesterday, it was unbelievable, gone. Shelves were empty. I mean, I was seeing it on the news and I thought, really? So I went to like 4 different places and none of them had any bottled water. So I'm assuming that we're looking into that somehow and we can make sure that our citizens have.
So what will happen
Items.
is at the point where we can, we start evacuations, we can make known to the public any gas stations we know along the evacuation routes that still have gas, or at that point, it's kind of who still has gas and who's not backed up for 6 miles waiting.
And I think that's probably where Port Manatee can really come in handy as far as helping the stations refuel. Next for me is we just went through a massive flooding situation here in Manatee County. And I mean, I can tell you in my district, everybody thought we were safe from it all because we're further out east. But no, we actually had homes that were flooded there as well. And I think most of the cars and sheriff's cars that had problems were actually in District 5 there around State Road 70 and Terra Boulevard and Creekwood. But then there were other homes that were also flooded. In fact, I'm not sure. I had been told by the fire district that the EOC had those addresses, but for some reason I never could get them. I'm not sure why. I sent 2 or 3 emails asking for them, never got them. So I ended up getting them from the fire chief instead. But my concern is, you know, I mean, you had massive flooding, like in other areas, like I think Robin in your district had some. I'm not sure, Charles, about yours. Okay. My concern is the water levels are high already. So have we taken into consideration what that might mean, you know, with so much rain getting ready to come in? I mean, are there any special provisions that we can take, or what are we looking at there exactly? If you're talking about all these inches of rain that you think might be coming our way, my concern is truly, I think Manatee County is already full of water. So what do we do in that regard? What are you doing to, what can we do, actually, I guess should be the question, to help that situation?
Absolutely. And the problem is, regardless of how the storm tracks over the next couple of days, even the littlest rainfall is going to be a problem for us in this county because of where we're already at water-wise in from the recent rains. What the evacuation of level A will allow us to do is focus our efforts on those areas we know we're having problems with, like Center Lake. We'll be keeping a special eye on them and the water in that area over the next couple of days once the rain starts, because we know it's a troubled area. We'll be working with the fire departments to be keeping an eye on those areas. We'll be sending folks out into the field to check water levels. We'll have constant reports coming from the utilities departments on levels at the dam and things like that over the coming days. In
That was
advance,
my next question, the
yeah,
dam.
Yeah. In advance, the things that we tell people is we're handing out sandbags now. Get there now, because as we get closer to potential impact, more and more people are going to wake up to the idea that they may need sandbags. So we highly encourage people to make sure you've got all your plans and preparations in place now. You've got your sandbags. Get out there and get that done now.
And let me ask, because of the flooding, had we not just had this storm, I wouldn't be concerned, but not as concerned as I am now. Because of the flooding that we had, and we know this will just exasperate it, make it even worse, are you going to take that into consideration when you're looking at evacuations?
Yes, ma'am. What we'll do is, as we start the evacuations, The fire departments, we have special needs registries, so those folks in the county who have special needs, whether it's full-time medical care or 24-hour oxygen, things like that, we've already started reaching out to those folks
Good.
to see what their needs may be over the coming days. We've started coordinating the potential for special needs sheltering or getting those folks out of the county, whatever resources they have. Actually, our community paramedicine division's taking the lead on that because they're the ones that interact with those folks the most over the course of their operations. So we've already started reaching out to them and to the local hospitals to start looking into those needs, so.
Okay. And, Mr. Smith, I assume that, I know at this point you've been doing the PowerPoint, but I'm assuming that someone will go over this resolution with us that's been presented to us? Who's going to
Are
be
we gonna
going
read
over
it
that?
now?
Because I haven't heard anything about that yet.
We'll go over that in a minute.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple things. I was on the teleconference last night with Governor Scott at 7 o'clock. He had all the counties on there, and he's really hands-on. I really give him a lot of credit, he and his team, and gave us all his phone numbers and their chief of staff's phone numbers, so I'll make a copy and give it to all the commissioners. He said to call at any time we need assistance. He's closing all state government offices for Friday and hoping the workers can either shelter in place and or evacuate, and those that are remaining to help out at the shelters. He's calling in the National Guard. He's already called in a couple hundred, and 7,000 are being called in for all over. I just want to urge citizens, because we were just talking about the flooding from last weekend, and it was just a heavy rain that was unexpected, and people in Center Lake and Shady Brook in my district and some other areas went out to dinner, came back to their homes totally flooded, up to their knees in water, and it was devastating. And so I've been dealing with that all week. I look like the cat dragged me in here today. I haven't been sleeping really well. And I've been on the phone, poor Mike Gore, day and night with Mike trying to get trash pickup because people have already started to tear out from the drywall, all their furniture, all their belongings. So I just want to make sure people are listening. It could happen to anyone, and water will seek wherever it wants to go, and it'll come up through the foundation. It'll come in anywhere, from the roofs down, foundation up. And so right now, I had a meeting last night with Shady Brook residents, and I said, right now, get all your important papers together, all your, your deeds, your kids' information or your health records, anything you can in plastic storage bins, and get them ready, get them loaded into your car, and have that stuff all ready. If you're gonna evacuate, and make sure you have your medicines for a couple weeks, and your pets, make sure they have crates and their food and their medicine, and don't be scrambling at the last minute. Get everything now. So we're working with them because there's two communities that have been hit hard twice over the last 2 years, so they qualify for FEMA assistance, but the problem is we have Houston and all the assistance is going there. The governor assured us that he was on the phone with the president and that we are not going to be shortchanged because of what happened in Houston. So he's assured us of that. So he wants everyone, we can replace things, but we can't replace people. So make sure that you're safe. I witnessed families being evacuated, walking through knee, waist deep water. Be very, very careful because it's full of sewage. Fire ants we didn't even think of that, but snakes and alligators, because all these ponds have alligators. So be very careful. And there was a couple people walking through areas that they didn't need to walk through because they thought they were having fun walking through, kind of like a snow day, and they're walking through the snow, and that's our snow day. And I stopped my car, I wrote, please don't walk through there, because you don't know what's in there. And so then, and the sidewalk was right next to them, so they were walking on the sidewalk. So please be diligent, vigilant, call your friends, make sure that those that need to get evacuated first go to our special needs shelters. And there's a list, but people might not know about the list. So who do they call to get on the list of special needs, or is it a little too late, or?
It's close to being too late, but it's never too late. And they can contact us. They can call the Citizens Action Center at 7. Don't make me quote that number. We'll get to that number publicized, but it's on the website. And we have the Citizens Information Center activated. The hotline's available. We can work with those folks. They just need to give us a call, and we'll do what we can to help them out.
I want to also give a big shout out to the sheriff's office and the deputies, because unfortunately, when a lot of these homes are starting to get cleaned out, they have to leave the doors and the garage doors and the windows open to air out. And looters are coming in. Please, please, let's be civil here. It's a tragedy, and let's not make someone's tragedy into a photo op and into some sort of, benefit for someone. And I'm almost crying. Because the citizens were there, they didn't have any help. Finally, you had like ServPro and a couple other companies are coming in and ripping out. And they're trying to organize their trash, and that's where I'm segueing into Mike Gore. They're trying to organize the trash because the haulers, we have specific haulers for specific districts. And I spoke with the county administrator last week about freeing up funds for extra hauling, because we need to make sure that all this stuff that's there now gets out of the way, because this stuff is going to be projectiles, especially in the Center Lakes and a couple of these areas that are flooded. We need all this stuff out, and you have different trucks picking up scrap, picking e-scrap, picking up appliances, picking up furniture. You have no idea until you just drive around this one little microcosm. But that is what can be on this Saturday. So in 1 week's time, we could have from one little area to a lot of the county. And so I know we have contracts with the different haulers, and Mike didn't want to cross contracts. But I spoke with Keith Banachek at Waste Pro. Center Lake wasn't his area for trash, but he's willing to step in. We don't want anyone's feelings hurt, but this is an emergency. So we need the county administrator and your staff and Mike Gore's staff to be able to call out either one to come pick it up. I know you have it organized. Also, a big shout out to Sherry Courier and her team, Debbie DeLeon, a couple other people were there, and they were there going door to door in Center Lake, getting everyone's name, phone number, email address. And another big problem is insurance, because I'm living through it, so I have firsthand experience. Half the people did not even have insurance, so that's a big problem, because they have no money to fix up. Some people had homeowners insurance and not flood insurance, or flood and not homeowners. So one would say, we can't cover you because it's flood. So make sure, or it's too late now to get an insurance policy. There's usually a 30-day waiting period and so forth. So the other thing is, take photos of your household goods. Take photos and keep them on your phone, even save it to a thumb drive, and that way you can have proof for the insurance company, because they're not letting you take anything out of the house until the adjuster comes in and sees what's in the house. So everybody wanted to pull everything out to start airing out, but for the haulers, they went around. Larry, a big shout out to Larry in Utilities. He was going door to door, and he was marking which had to stay and waiting for the insurance companies, and which could go. So as of last night, when I rode around again, it looked 100 times better than it did 2 days ago, but still there's a lot of stuff still there because they're waiting for the insurance companies. So take pictures as proof, but again, we need the stuff out of these communities now that's on the road. A lot of the problems are a lot of the ditches, Pierce Drain. We need to really work on that. I was on the phone with Gerstenberger and some of the teams that we need to check the engineering on that. And, moving forward on a lot of these communities that we're infilling, which we really are excited about infilling, but the standards now are different than what they were. And when one community is raised up 12 feet and then the other one is not, and you have the ditches in between and that fills up, it's gone to the lowest spot. So as a community, we need to evaluate that moving forward. I want to go to Commissioner Smith and then back to Commissioner Ball.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have several questions, and I'm not just maybe the second one I've been through as a county commissioner, but as a city commissioner, I'm used to having the public works director here to talk about roads, and I have some questions because the facts are that the last storm we had, major thoroughways was closed down. They were flooded, and you couldn't leave if you wanted to leave. And so I'm concerned about roads flooding out before we decide to evacuate. I received quite a few phone calls, like 14th Street West, I can keep naming them over and over. Major thoroughways that people gonna have to evacuate was already closed down. In fact, they closed all the businesses down because the street was already flooded. So certainly in the future, and I know he probably was asked to be here. I like asking my public works director on streets, possibility of flooding certain streets which he knows, streets that was flooded last time. We had Somerset, for example, but the major thoroughways that we're looking for residents to evacuate was actually flooded. And so who's going to be working from his department, that kind of stuff needs to be here. We talked about sandbags. Those things there should also be coming from the public works director. His team, who's going to be here, who leaves, who stays. I mean, the public needs to know that. The public needs to know that if we take to evacuate, that we may not be able to come out in high winds and do anything. And, so those are some of the questions that I would have asked. Getting back to the point that Commissioner Bob mentioned, and I think Commissioner Sabatino, the reason I was talking about the evacuation, there's a head start on hotels, a major head start on hotels, which forces you maybe to drive to Georgia to get a hotel. And that's why I'm saying the evacuation is very important. I'd rather be on the side of safety than, we didn't have to do that. Because more realistically, you probably have to go on the other side of Tallahassee or Georgia to get a hotel at this point, because you got a head start by several million people who are on the highway now booking up hotels. And, and some people can make a reservation now versus waiting, or you can't make one if you got a loved one in Savannah or somewhere like that. I know it may turn, but I believe, unless I'm wrong, we're gonna get heavy rain regardless here. And so those are the things that I'm really concerned about, that streets that may be already out, flooded, barricaded, that you can't even get down that road. And there were streets throughout Manatee County that fit that criteria. So I would have loved to, and I know I'm not blaming Ron for not being here, but I think he should be in this meeting here so we can ask street questions and road closure questions and that kind of stuff. How is team going to work and who's going to be here? Is the vice chair going to stay if we evacuate? I need to know all of this stuff. I just don't know. But what I want to make sure that we don't make the mistake if we have a major disaster here, that we make a technical mistake. So I need to know those questions. Maybe I should know these questions. If we do evacuate, who actually stays here? Does the vice chair stay? What employees remain? I mean, the public needs to be aware of
Yes,
that.
sir.
It causes dangerous for them also, but
Right.
it needs to let them know that we got employees risking their life that may not have to leave here or may have to stay to defend Manatee County. So that's good for the public to be aware of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, and I would just say, Ron Showalter and the Public Works team, we've been in constant communications with them for a couple of days now, actually. His team makes up probably the majority of folks who will physically be, and I'm sure are currently in the EOC, and his folks are there from start to finish. He keeps several folks in the EOC with us from his different operational areas to work with us And as we put out situation reports over the course of our activations, we'll put those out every so many hours. There will be a section on there that will include any roads that are flooded or are about to be flooded. He assigns staff to the EOC to work with him. We work hand in hand with Public Works from start to finish, and I'm more than confident. I know his team is already on scene at the EOC, and they have been there regularly from the very beginning. So.
And I understand that, and I respect that, but I'm dealing with what's on TV today. The public is watching this and need to know that this morning, because they're not going to be privileged to EOC conversations. And the Manatee residents need to be aware of that. And he needs, as 35 or 35 miles per hour wind, his people don't move. He needs to say it from there. They stand still. So, and encourage people to evacuate. Some won't evacuate. We as commissioners may stay. At least one of us may stay if all of us don't stay. I'm just saying. So we need to understand that and make sure that we protect the residents and that this is a serious situation, even if it don't come directly down the pipe. I truly believe, unless you correct me, that we're going to get a lot of heavy rain. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, and I think it's important that Charles brought up some great points. I can tell you, I know I talked to Ron yesterday, and they are working hard trying to clear up debris and as you said, Commissioner. So I know that Public Works is out there and they're working hard. 2 concerns though, maybe 3 more. The dam. We need an update. This board needs an update on the dam. We know that it could be an issue.
You're right.
What is going on with the dam? Can anyone answer that question for us?
We will have a report from you. Mike Gore will present one this morning, and then we'll text the board members about the current status of the dam.
Okay, because, that's what this meeting's for. It's an emergency commission meeting, so we need to know. The other thing is, I do want to bring this up. Normally in the past, the chairman of the board, according to last year when I was chair of this board, in case of a hurricane, I would be at the EOC to get information out and also to help keep this board informed. I am going to assume that that has not changed this year because I don't remember seeing anything where that changed. So am I correct to assume that Vice Chair DeSabatino will be at the EOC for this storm? Or this board should have coverage there at the EOC.
Well, the policy group will meet probably today, tomorrow. And from the policy group, the board would be informed, and all decisions will be made policy-wise by the policy group.
Well, the leaders that you're referring to come under this Board of County Commissioners. So
We are
our
the
chair
policy
should
group.
be there,
We are the policy group.
Well, other elected
always
officials
been-
are also involved in that.
the way it was done in the past.
Yeah, we are.
Well, I have to say, I'm acting chair, our current chair is not here, and I will stay at my home, and then if I need to go to the EOC, my husband's saying we're evacuating, I'm like, I'm not evacuating, you can go, you can fly up to Delaware, but I'm staying. Last time we evacuated, we got in the car and I went to Orlando, and that's where the storm hit, so I am not leaving.
Charlie.
So, yeah, our neighbors were cracking up.
Yeah.
So,
Madam Chair.
I will be here.
And
And
Madam Chair,
I'll-
if I will-
County.
Wait,
I think I have the floor.
got the floor.
yeah.
Let her talk.
My concern, and thank you, because I know that's a difficult situation to be put in when you're talking about your husband or your family members, children, whatever the case may be. I know that's difficult. But you know what? We've got 363,000 people that,
Right.
where I know
Not everybody can.
how that
leave the
goes.
state, and you never know where it's going to go.
No,
So might
you
as well
don't.
just stay in place.
And the last thing I want to say is that I'm hoping that the citizens and that the papers will report this. You have commissioners up here that are looking at evacuating. So if we're looking at evacuating the citizens, you should look at that as well. There is no need to stay here with a possible Category 5 coming at us. Let's be reasonable. So if you have any way to go, and go now. So you can avoid a lot of the traffic coming from south of us, so get out now.
Will we know if and when the airport will be closing and the Tampa airport as well? Because people might want to just get on a plane and go to wherever they want to go.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be passing along information as we receive it on a regular basis. And to address your presence at the EOC, by all means, you're free to come, however, as often as you'd like. However, our policy is we will make you aware well in advance when we would need you there for any type of policy group activity.
Okay.
But again, you're free to stop by.
And my house is the closest to the AOC as it is, and it's right in my
But
district.
we will make sure that you know when you have to be there.
And my husband's gone up to the boat to get all our foul weather gear and all our boots, and I told him to bring back the dinghy and the engine in case we need it, so.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, considering what went on in Houston. I don't know whether between now and Friday, probably too late, if any teams can go in and around the Pierce Canal and just clean out as much as they can, because that's one
major
area.
problem.
That goes into Bowleys, that whole area. I don't know if we have any crews that can go in. I'm not just focusing on that because that's in my district. I'm focusing on that because it's notorious for flooding even when there's no hurricane.
Absolutely, and as soon as I can make it back to the EOC, I will make sure that the Public Works folks that are there are aware of that.
Okay,
So-
so that, Commissioner Whitmore.
Goodness. All right. There's a process.
Can I make some comments?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Steve, you
You're on-
want to talk before I do? Because it's
Wait.
going to be hard. You want to talk before I do? Is
Go
that
ahead.
okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
You want me to?
Commissioner Johnson.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just from a West Braden standpoint, a couple of things. The evacuation, I think, is critical. I think we have to make a decision at some point when to shut down Manatee and Cortez and make all that traffic just to go east and not west. And I think if you are coming west, coming out for the islands or West Bradenton, a lot of people right now want to come down. The new El Conquistador Parkway, which I can attest to from last Saturday night, is about 8 feet underwater with very little rain. So we're going to need to address that issue at 53rd, the roundabout there, and not direct those people because they're going to come down Elcon thinking they can keep evacuating when Cortez gets congested. And they're going to get stuck in front of the IMG Country Club where that water, I think, was about 8-9 feet last weekend. So that's just going to bottleneck everything. I also was on Manatee Avenue personally with my car in 4-5 feet of water. So Manatee Avenue, if it's a high tide, can become very impassable as well. So I think the sooner that we start getting the word out to the island people and to the West Braden people for evacuation purposes, the better off we're going to be, because I don't think the roads other than Cortez are going to be able to handle all that traffic trying to get out of town.
Okay.
So I think that's just, something that's needs to be put into the thought process, I guess.
Okay.
And I can't think what the other thought I had was on
Hold that thought,
the
Commissioners.
evacuation. The other, again, when you have to start thinking of shutting down westbound property or lanes, and that includes the interstate. And I know we don't, have any control over that, but as you say, you're going to have a lot of people from the south coming north, and the evacuations, should this thing, end up where it's headed, it's going to be a big mess
Yeah.
type of thing. And I think we need to make that a really high priority to make these roads one way headed out of town.
Well, Commissioner Johnson, that's a good question, and that was brought up during our briefing last night with the governor. At this point, what did he say? He didn't want to reverse course on interstate and state or federal roads at this point, because emergency vehicles have to get back and forth and people need to get in. So at this point, he wasn't doing that, but county roads, we could re-engineer county roads. We just got a message from the EOC. They need us. We can still continue to dialogue, but right now we have to focus right now on our resolution in front of us. Steve, do you have a copy of that?
No, I do not.
Okay, Mary Ann, could you email Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, a copy of the resolution R-17? And it doesn't have whatever the
Attorneys.
final number, the attorney.
112,
One-
R17, 112.
Resolution R-17-112.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I think we
Okay,
need
I
to
think we need to read
It's
it.
a,
To the record, I think.
We need to read it
okay,
in the
this
record.
is a declaration, so that we can start everything we've been talking
Right.
about.
The
Until we
EOC
start
needs to
this, we
start,
can't,
so-
and that's probably why the EOC is asking.
Right.
After we do this, can I please have the floor, because I've
Yes.
been waiting?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Do you want the attorney to read it?
do you want Mr. Attorney, do you want to read that?
If they want to hear it.
You want me to read the entire
Yes.
text of the resolution?
Yes, because I think Commissioner
they
Ball
do.
had some comments.
Just one. I
Okay.
just have one question.
Okay, let's
On
read
it.
it first.
All right, Resolution R17-112. This is going to take a while. Whereas the National Hurricane Center has recognized the danger to residents of Florida from Hurricane Irma, including the possibility that it may impact Manatee County. And whereas Manatee County has vulnerable residents requiring safe evacuation and sheltering from the hazards of a tropical storm or hurricane. And whereas the current forecast margin of error of the National Hurricane Center requires avoidance of undue delay in preparing for timely evacuation if the need therefore is determined. And whereas Hurricane Irma has the potential for causing extensive injury to persons or loss of life and damage to private property, as well as damage to public utilities, public buildings, public communication systems, public streets and roads, and public drainage systems. And whereas Sections 252.38 Sub 1 and Sub 3 Florida statutes prescribe the establishment of a local emergency management agency, the appointment of a director thereof, the power and authority thereof, and the power and authority of the Board of County Commissioners in emergency situations. And whereas Chapter 252 or Section 252.46 Florida statutes and Manatee County Ordinance 05-29 provide authority for Manatee County to declare a state of local emergency and to exercise the power and authority to carry out the provisions of Sections 252.3.1 through 252.9.0 Florida statutes, including the authority to waive procedures and formalities otherwise required of political subdivisions by law pertaining to performance of public work and taking whatever action is necessary to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the community, entering into contracts, incurring obligations, employment of permanent and temporary workers, utilization of voluntary workers, rental of equipment, acquisition and distribution of supplies, materials, and facilities with or without compensation, and appropriation and expenditure of public funds. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County, Florida, in emergency session this 6th day of September 2017, that Hurricane Irma poses a serious threat to the lives and property of residents of Manatee County, and that a state of local emergency is hereby declared, effective immediately for all territory within the legal boundaries of Manatee County, including all unincorporated and incorporated areas. Be it further resolved that the Board of County Commissioners hereby waives the above-mentioned procedures and formalities required by law of a political subdivision as provided in Section 252.38, Sub 3, Florida statutes, and Manatee County Ordinance 05-29. Be it further resolved that the Board of County Commissioners hereby delegates to the Director of Public Safety the authority to discharge the duties and exercise the powers specified in Section 9A of Manatee County Ordinance 05-29 until such time as the local emergency declared herein is terminated or expired, or 7 days from this date, whichever is sooner. Be it further resolved that the Board of County Commissioners hereby delegates to the Director of Public Safety the authority to implement disaster emergency plans, agreements, and supporting documents in accordance with Section 5A of Manatee County Ordinance 05-29, adopted in emergency session the 6th day of September 2017, signed Robin DeSabatino, first vice chairperson.
Okay, Commissioner Whitmore.
A comment on this, our public safety director has always been, as long as I've been around, responsible after a declaration is declared. For years, it was Karen Wyndham, because she was public safety director, and then the others thereafter. And we need to activate this. We have an ordinance that says we have to do this. We sit around and we delay this. We can't reach into any of the funds. So we need to move forward on this, but I have more comments, but that's not relating this, I'll wait.
Okay,
And hopefully everybody else will just pertain to this.
okay. Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, Mickey,
I want to comment on this because I'm not in agreement.
Okay.
Well,
Commissioner Ball?
I'm sorry, I thought Commissioner Whitmore was saying something.
Yes, I am. Let's stick to the fact that there's an emergency going, and if we have personal differences with certain employees, that has to go away. We have to look for the public safety of our citizens, and that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Whitmore, I don't know of any board member up here that would do what you just suggested. It's insulting. Mickey, is this the same resolution that we've done in the past? Exactly the same?
I have not compared this with prior resolutions. I have seen I recall looking at prior resolutions in past declarations. This looks and sounds extremely familiar to what's been adopted in the past. Does it mirror what's been adopted in the past, word for word? I cannot confirm that as I sit here.
And who put this together?
Yeah, that was my next question. Who put this resolution together then?
I
If you
had no
haven't seen
involvement
it,
in drafting this resolution. I assume that Mr. Smith's department.
I can't speak to who originally drafted the resolution. We have a template of the resolution that we just put the date and the chairperson's name on
Okay.
when we're going to activate. So
Okay.
where this was drafted years ago, I don't know.
This
We
is just a template
We
that
keep
you-
a template on file. When we need one, we put a date on it, we put the chairperson's name on it, we send it to the county attorney, and we get a resolution number from the county attorney's office and bring it here, so.
Okay, okay.
So, I'm sorry. So, Mickey, your office has not looked at this resolution and approved it?
I personally did not view this resolution until I walked into these chambers at roughly 7:59 this morning. It was the first time I viewed this document. And so, again, it looks very, very familiar to what my memory tells me has been, past emergency declarations. But in terms of comparing it with past declarations, I have not done that.
Okay.
I'm not done.
Okay, I just want to say the last paragraph where you read, instead of chapter 252.46, you said statute section.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, could you be,
The last paragraph, whereas it had chapter 252.46, but you had read whereas section 252.46.
okay, again, I'm trying to find my place in the resolution, Commissioner, where I substituted that word.
Okay, page one,
Page 1, we're on page 1.
last paragraph.
Last paragraph on page 1. Okay, thank you.
Whereas, then it says chapter 2.
Yes, thank you.
You said section 252.46.
Indeed, I did. That is a Scrivener's error.
Okay.
There are a number of Scrivener's errors in this document.
Okay,
There are a number of Scrivener's errors in this document. I have identified them all as I've been sitting at the dais here this morning. Do they affect the legality of this instrument as a whole? They do not.
Okay.
But if this board wants me to go through and identify every Scrivener's error, I can do so right now. Indeed, the word chapter should read section.
Right.
So I took the liberty to say section, even though it reads chapter.
and then you had an and after the first Manatee County in the first.
That is
section.
correct. That's another item that's a missing word.
Right,
After the first exordial clause, it's a missing word. So again, I've identified all the Scrivener's errors. If you'd like me to identify them all here for the record, and we can crank out a fresh new document, presumably within a matter of minutes.
okay, let's go to Commissioner Smith right now.
Madam Chair, I'm looking at the document, I'm looking at what's on the screen right here, and then when you get to, it says city chief administrative or elected official of affected community. I don't know what that means.
Where,
The mayors, your city,
I'm
when you
dealing
were
with
a
the county
commissioner.
though. I know.
Yeah.
I understand without city commissioner, but I'm saying,
where are you?
I'm looking at policy group, the policy group.
Oh.
members include-
Commissioner Smith is looking on my computer screen. I
Okay.
have in front of me right now the list of members of the policy group on my screen right now.
Right.
So that's what you're looking at,
That's what I'm
correct?
looking at right.
Could you
That's the
get that printed out for us as well?
Where's it at? I mean, I don't.
Ordinance.
Email it to us?
Yes, I can do that. I can do that.
Madam Chair, that was my first on that, and you just mentioned some of the things that I've seen. My concern, and I agree with Commissioner Barr, has nothing to do with staff. It has to do with procedures and policy. In
Exactly.
the end of the day, the elected officials, I understand they're making decisions, but the chair has to be privy to those decisions and not just summons to sign a document on behalf of this board. And so I'm not going to support that. The staff may make a decision, but in the end of the day, I want this chair to be privileged to the information and make an intelligent decision on behalf of us, not staff actually doing it without input and you just signing something that,
Right.
in the end of the day, these reporters will be looking for us. Why
Right.
did you do that? And why you're not in town, by the way? So some commissioner is going to have to be here.
I
We all
will,
can't leave.
I am not
It's
leaving.
not good
the
policy.
I won't, I am making
And
a
I'm not
statement.
saying that I will be leaving, but all of us can't leave Manatee County, because you know somebody's got to make decisions, and some people are not going to leave, and at a certain point, there's going to have to be wise dialogue from elected positions. I agree with you saying.
I am
I'm
not leaving the
taking that away.
county.
They make the decision,
Where my
but
pledge?
protect us. It won't look good if all of us gone.
Now, I have a question, and it's a legal question. If I have to make a decision, and I want to call some members of the board, I can't do that because of sunshine.
Right.
How does that work out?
Run it through staff.
Gotta be in control, that's what I'm saying.
I have to have staff call each individual commissioner to ask them the question?
You just do it.
Commissioner,
If
the
something-
sunshine law is not suspended.
Right,
Fortunately
right.
or unfortunately, depending on your point of view.
Right.
The sunshine law is not suspended during periods of emergency. And so,
If I have to ask the opinion of the other commissioners, and it's not an advertised public meeting, do I have staff call each one? But that's still sunshine, because if you're coming
Right.
back. No,
there is no suspension of the sunshine law during periods of emergency.
So
I'm not sure how else to answer the question.
so I just have to make the determination for all of us.
Exactly.
I
correct.
can't
Well, again,
call Commissioner Ball.
under your ordinance, once this resolution is passed and a
Alright.
state of emergency is declared, the gentleman standing at the podium right now is essentially in charge. Now, if the two of you are gathered, I suppose, at the EOC, and the administrator is there, and you want to direct something different than what the director is proposing, I suppose you've got that authority.
Okay,
Okay, that's what I want to.
But that's a decision you're going to have to make unilaterally on your own without conferring with other commissioners.
Okay.
I have a comment,
okay.
because
wait,
everybody's
Stay in
butting
line.
in.
We
Oh,
have
wait, wait.
customers,
Commissioner Smith
commissioners
was
on the
still
board.
Madam Chair, that's what I wanted clarification, not taking any authority away from the staff, but if the chair with public policy kind of say, well, let's do it this way, we do it the same way, but I think we should do it the way, we're dealing with the public here. That she, or he, or whoever it may be, and it's she, has that authority. If it's something that really you think may harm the county, because at the end of the day, your colleagues, us, we must point to an elected official that had the authority to make that decision, and we stand by that decision.
Okay.
Okay, I'm fine now.
Go to
This
Commissioner
is,
Whitmore.
this is getting kind of embarrassing. I have somebody, and please quit the face making. I have a commissioner here, when they're saying Bob Smith is gonna be in charge, she's shaking her head no. I hope you're listening, Steve, because we need to declare an emergency. We're getting into micromanagement, and that is the whole purpose of the ordinance. Charles, you've been in a city when we've had to evacuate, I've had to evacuate. You know that the public safety director is the team leader in conjunction with the elected officials.
Mayor as
The
well.
policy, no, that's not true. I talked to all the mayors last night in the city of Holmes
We
Beach.
changed it, but the mayor of Palmetto was actually,
She's the one that came to your thing, right, but she could delegate.
but
The
at the end of the
island,
day, she makes the decision.
the islands, right, of her city, not of the county, but that's not even true. The ordinance says, and I've been through mandatory evacuations, and Mickey,
We beg to differ.
well, you guys, we can't be inventing this. We have a time of emergency. We're sitting here changing our ordinance, and
No,
you
we're not.
can't without public hearings.
It said exactly what I just said to the Madam Chair. If you looked at
Telling
when we went
you.
to training, it talked about the chair being here.
We are not God. I hate to tell you this. The public safety is the one, director is the one in charge of this emergency event. We as,
Do that.
can I please finish? As policy board members, we attend the policy meeting, and Robin has been there, where we sit there and go around and we vote on it. and then they follow out our orders. But you are absolutely right, they keep the chairman informed. So this has really gotten embarrassing. I see people out there with their, can't believe what they're hearing. I have never seen this in all my years. And would you quit the face making, Ms. Baugh, please?
Commissioner Whitmore, you are so
let's-
out of line.
No, you are, and I am asking there be respect, decorum here. Let's declare this emergency and let's move forward, and we will go to our policy meeting if the county calls that we go.
Okay, let,
Here, nobody's in charge here. We're all 7 in charge. We are policymakers.
let's take a deep breath, everyone.
Thanks.
It's very emotional and trying for all of us. Nobody wants to be here right now, but we are faced with this. So,
Can I make a motion to see if it'll pass? I'll make a motion that and then we can discuss
Yes,
however
okay.
you want. Resolution, I want make a motion to pass Resolution R-17-112, and I will respectfully request a second so we can move forward to deal with everything else we're talking about.
Commissioner Smith, do you second that?
No, I'm not through. I probably could second it, but I'm not through with
Well,
dialogue.
I can second as,
can-
I can second as a chair for discussion. First of
you.
all, we're going to make this Scrivener's changes.
That's what I want changed.
And they were just minor changes, and,
Madam Chair, if I might.
yes.
I want to be clear. I did not intend to be critical of Mr. Smith and his staff when I said there were Scrivener's errors in this document. The document was obviously put together in a very rapid fashion because we've got an emergency on our hands.
Well-
So, so I didn't want to be,
So maybe
but-
the Scrivener's error has just been,
But part of what I do
forward.
every day is reviewing documents in detail.
yes, sir.
Every day, a wide variety of documents. I can spot a misspelled word on a page in a matter of moments. That's me. I've been doing it for 35 years. So indeed, there are Scrivener's errors, which we can easily correct here today if that's the desire of the board.
Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Need a second on this yet? Or
Yes.
still-
Yes,
Yeah,
for discussion.
Robin did, Steve.
Oh, okay.
I just have a question. Mickey, I asked you if you could supply us or go over the ones that we've done in the past, because the reason I'm saying that is we didn't need to reinvent the wheel. We've done this before. We did this a couple of years ago, as I recall. And that's why I just want to make sure, because I could have sworn, and perhaps I'm wrong, and that's why I wanted you to check it for me, that it didn't go to public safety. It went to the county administrator. And he has ample authority to be able to do whatever needs to be done. And that's my question, and that's why I'm kind of holding off on this. I just want to make sure that this is the exact resolution that we've used in the past. So,
I'm in a position to comment on that now.
thank you. That's my question.
My pleasure. First of all, a big thank you to Assistant County Attorney Pamela DiAgostino, who is listening in on the conversation this morning and has emailed to me just moments ago a resolution that was adopted as far back as 2005 associated with Hurricane Wilma. It's on my screen right now. Does it match what you have before you today word for word? It does not. However, it is hauntingly similar. The same statutes are quoted, the same 8 subject areas wherein our typical procedures are waived are recited in here word for word, such as entering into contracts, incurring obligations, utilization of volunteer workers. And so moving on down, hauntingly similar. Word for word, no, I don't think so. For example, the 05 resolution, quote, "The board hereby delegates to the Director of Emergency Management, or in the director's absence, the Chief of Emergency Management, the authority to discharge the duties." Now, here's what's interesting. The ordinance says the Director of Public Safety is given that authority. So I would suggest that the 05 resolution relative to Hurricane Irma was in error
Wilma.
in not designating the Director of Public Safety as being the person in charge. So
Okay,
I hope that helps.
okay.
That's
I
what
hope
I,
that helps.
thank you, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay. And I also wanted to know if we need to just say, dispatch Waste Pro into Waste Management's territory and vice versa. Who has that authority to do so?
I'm sorry, that question's being posed to the lawyer.
Lawyer
I'm
or the
sorry.
county administrator?
I'm sorry. I do not have, obviously, I do not have the waste haulers franchise agreements in front of me. However, I am picturing a section in my mind within those franchise agreement documents that allows either the administrator or the utilities director to give direction to waste haulers in times of emergency. That's about the best I can do for you right now without having those documents in
Because
front of me.
that's really important. If we can maybe even get sub-agreements with them in place, or an understanding that if we call them, that they can, because Waste Pro was saying if they got a call from Mike Gore, that they could go ahead and do what he needed. So if Mike Gore's in charge, then I need to hear that. Or can I direct Mike Gore?
Point of order, Madam Chair, we're on this motion.
Well-
That's after, but I agree with
Well-
you. We need to get that straight, but
We
that's
need
not
to,
on
we
the,
need to, because it says, in.
it says
the next.
contracts, yeah.
Okay, so who's in charge of that? Town administrator.
Commissioners, you currently have contracts with two providers, and if one provider does not have the, in working with them and talking to Mike Gore, if one provider doesn't have the resources to meet the demand, we can bring in the other one. But I think working with the providers, we have to make sure that we don't violate their contracts as we go moving forward. And I think that's the discussion we're having today with the two firms, is do they have the capacity to provide the services within their assigned districts? And if not, why not?
Okay, because their contracts pertain to the normal and customary pickup
Yes.
of refuse. This is not normal and customary, so this is above and beyond. So we need to have an understanding with you to, Ed, to Mike Gore, if he is able to make those determinations.
And
Well, we'll work in concert on those decisions and bring them back to the board. If one firm, as I stated, can't meet the demands in their district, I believe we have the authority to bring in the other firm. We have not seen that to date, that the primary firm doesn't have the capacity to do what they
Okay,
requested to
but all
do.
bets are gonna be off after, right now. And right now, Center Lake isn't even cleaned up. And so I don't have the comfort level that, this emergency situation is gonna be handled to my specifications right now. It's not. And I could get Waste Pro in there right now and clean it up, but I don't wanna step on Waste Management's toes, and they're both in my district.
Well, when I get to the EOC, I will meet with Mike and talk about Waste Management's capacity to meet the demand.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, you had something?
To your point, Commissioner DeSabatino, I agree with you. One thing, and that's why the Public Works Director, I found out during storms, for example, garbage supposed to be picked up today in certain areas. It may not be picked up.
Right.
It may need to be picked up Monday. It may not be picked up due to the storm. So actually, you're supposed to have two pickups, but you may only get one pickup because of the storm, which I understand. But you have to make that pickup sometime, not just get rid of that pickup. And that needs to be monitored by Mr. Gore to make sure that the duty responsibility takes place. Maybe not in that hazardous day, but certainly if you don't pick up Monday and Tuesday and you schedule for two pickups maybe, you still got to do the two sometime. You just can't cut that one because we couldn't pick it up. Because it will back up. So we had that problem in the city one time, and we had to monitor that situation. But certainly in that contract, when you do a declaration of disaster issue that may take place, that the contract should go to the point of safety, I would think. If that's not in there, I think the county attorney basically saying it's maybe
So,
something in there.
If
that
someone,
says that.
I know Mike probably has those contracts, so I'm sure he'll review them, and I'll talk with him later on today. Mr. Hunsaker?
Madam Chair, there's a room full of people at the
Yeah,
EOC
right.
watching this, waiting. They can't take any action until you do this declaration, and they're patiently waiting for the action so that they can start moving.
Ball, any
Yeah,
questions?
a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to vote for the resolution because we need to make sure that the citizens of this county are covered. However, I do have reservation because, we did just have a major storm come through that caused the most flooding in this county that we've ever seen. And in all honesty, we didn't handle it too well, I don't believe. I know that I had several fire districts complaining to me, calling me during the night of the storms because we were not organized. So my concern is that I've got a Category 5 storm coming this way, and we didn't handle the last one too well, and that was just a storm. So I do have reservations about this. It is not a matter for this board to just openly do whatever we've done in the past. I mean, we have to make intelligent decisions in what we feel are accurate and just. So I'm going to vote for it, but I think, one thing Commissioner Johnson said about traffic, I think that's of the utmost importance. But next time,
Right,
don't have a meeting scheduled 45 minutes after this one because you might not make it.
okay.
Thank you.
Let's,
I have a question, Madam Chair.
anyone want to call the question?
I want to make a statement. I'm going to support the motion, but I want to make a
I
statement.
call the question.
Second.
All in favor of the question.
Okay, all in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so,
Commissioner Johnson, did you vote, sir?
you want to call the question? Unmute. He doesn't. Unmute,
I don't know which button it is.
Oh,
we
I
still
think
have a
maybe-
majority.
Commissioner Johnson?
You there?
We just need a majority, right?
We still have.
I'm sorry, yes? Yes,
Okay.
I voted
Okay.
yes.
Yes,
Okay, we're
okay.
getting ready to vote,
Okay,
Steve.
all those in favor of Resolution R-17-112, say aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye. Any opposed? So the motion passes 6-0.
Five to-
Five, yeah, Commissioner Trace is in here, five.
After
Five to
this,
zero.
is this it?
Okay, so we'll continue with this meeting, but the EOC can proceed.
Tomorrow, we may have a policy meeting. They'll send us a group text, right? Is that how
ma'am.
it works now?
Okay, do we, we're not finished with this meeting, but does this board want to convene before, this afternoon or tomorrow over at the EOC building?
Got a land use meeting in the morning.
Madam Chair?
Okay,
Land use.
okay.
Yeah,
so
Madam
we-
Chair?
Are we,
What
Still gonna
we'll
have the
all
land
start
use.
getting, if it's, I'm sure nothing's changed. Unfortunately, Karen's not here now, but, so it is a little bit different, but we will all get group texts, or however you want to be communicated with, on the status of what's going on and when they're going to call a policy meeting, and as well as the mayors last night are knowing that too. They're also included on this group text, right, Bob?
Absolutely. Once this declaration was passed, it enacts a whole plethora of
And
communications
now
tools.
we'll all
we'll
get
be
way
using.
too much information, but it's good because we can communicate it to our residents.
okay, and just don't forget, in case of a bad storm and power lines are down, we might not have internet and so forth, so it
And-
would
If
be
I could
difficult.
just suggest, we have that land use meeting tomorrow. Maybe we can efficiently get through that, and then we'll have 24 hours more information as to what's going on with this storm.
Right.
And and then maybe we could meet, have a special meeting or whatever you want to call it after we get through the land use meeting tomorrow, and have updated information and make sure that we are prepared for what we hope will not occur.
Okay.
After your meeting.
Yeah,
Good idea.
considering we still have a land use meeting for tomorrow, I think this board wants to continue to have that meeting because the people that are on deck want to have this meeting and get it over with. Hopefully, we can get it over with by lunch. That's very helpful. And then afterwards, we can possibly reconvene after lunch down at the EOC for a meeting. So I guess 24 hours, we have to call the meeting. So if we call a meeting for 2 o'clock tomorrow,
It's different now that it's an emergency. He
Okay.
can call it, correct?
Excuse me, no,
You
you
can,
cannot.
is it
I-
different
it's me
for the
now.
emergency,
No,
like,
You know what, we just gave them authority. to
like
do
the
whatever
chair
they want.
Right,
just said?
okay.
I think we can go there under
For the
the.
policy group, we would
See?
schedule a
Yeah,
policy
you don't
group
need
and
to know.
Okay, so the policy group
see
will
how
meet
the
tomorrow.
land use meeting.
Sometime tomorrow afternoon, and we'll let the public know. Okay, so we will still have our land use meeting here in Chambers tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Madam Chair.
And we have a time certain at 9 a.m. for the school board. They will be making some decisions of what they're doing. do we, so we're not making any determinations about this county government closing on Friday yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Madam Chair, to Director Smith's point, I thought he mentioned to us that 24-hour notice for evacuation for the mobile home parks. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you're.
You mentioned that they may have to evacuate Friday. I thought that's what you said earlier.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and tomorrow, Thursday is 24 hours is tomorrow morning. If they need to evacuate Friday, people just can't get up and leave. My point is that the later we go in Thursday, the later we push that evacuation 24-hour notice. And to the point of Commissioner Johnson's point, dealing with these roads, as he know, these roads we're talking about people leaving are flooded and will flood where people can't leave. And people drive into 8-9 foot of water, elderly will actually drown, which I don't have to tell you that. So I'm concerned about if we do evacuation for the mobile home parks, certainly that need to be done by noon Thursday and not later that day. We're dealing with elderly that may have to drive and can't drive at night.
So it takes about 10 to 17 hours to evacuate with a level A evacuation. We're shooting for Friday morning, gives us an extra 7 to 8 hours before the storm, the tropical force winds would arrive on Saturday morning. Now, the caveat there is that's based on the data we were receiving as of last night. That has potentially already changed. We would know if we were in the EOC. Once we get to the EOC and we start getting additional data, that Friday morning may shift into Friday afternoon. It may shift into Friday evening based on the track of the storm. We're at a point right now where there's too much uncertainty about the track of the storm to know exactly, which is why we would have the policy group meeting tomorrow where we'll have much more definitive information to go on.
Okay, but based on the numbers you showed earlier, we're still talking about 30% of the residents in Manatee County that may need to evacuate.
Roughly 100,000 people.
I'm in the A zone, and I've already got a place to stay and packed. And I've talked to the home health agency where I work. A lot of people are in mobile homes. They're already doing it now because they're not waiting. So hopefully you're all planning and got your important papers together and doing that now.
And the reason I'm mentioning this, Madam Chair, is that we're looking at poor and elderly folks that may have to get a ride to leave here and to carpool to get out of here. And that's why I'm asking these questions now. They may not have 6 hours to find someone to leave. We got a lot of people that don't have vehicles, can't leave, and those are the individuals I'm talking about that may can call someone and say, look, if you're leaving, I would like to ride with you to wherever you're going. This is what I'm saying, organizing that. I don't know what the percentage is, but we have a lot of people that don't have vehicles that will not be able to leave unless they carpool out of here, and that's why I'm asking that question now. And I understand it may change, but as I mentioned before, I'd rather be wrong by what I'm talking about than to lose life because someone just can't leave because all of a sudden somebody say, I'm leaving, I'm not waiting now, I'm leaving. As Commissioner just said, you know, if you're leaving with me now or I'm gone, I'm not going to wait till Saturday or Friday night to leave. And you know, it's on that road right now, I'm hearing that traffic is everywhere.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. We are anticipating starting the evacuations Friday morning or whenever, based on the storm. But we will make notifications to those who will need to leave in that evacuation long before that.
All right. And where do we come in now? I mean, how do we get information from you, but Chair, I understand that, but I'm saying to this point now, we're in full go. Your staff gonna be there 24/7, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And we'll be sending out situation reports to you every so many hours with updated information, both from the county, from the state, and from the National Hurricane Center from now through the time that we completely deactivate the EOC.
Will we get serious rain before the storm actually gets here?
It's hard to tell.
I'm concerned about the roads flooding out. You know, I'm very concerned about the roads flooding out before we actually evacuate the roads were shut down all night. Okay.
Charles, the special needs shelters, when you are in a, like anything, the elderly have been filling out for years now. They have a database of everybody to pick up. They have buses. and they have staging points. So now that you just did what you did, they can activate all that.
Okay, okay, I'm fine. We made public comment. I don't know. I'm fine.
No?
Any other commissioners? Mr. Johnson, any other comments? So we will have the land use meeting tomorrow. We'll see everyone at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Anything else from public safety wise?
No, at just this point, just keep an eye on your texts and your emails, and and if need be, phone calls. We'll be sending information to you on a regular basis, starting immediately.
And then the different other constitutional officers will make their determination, and they'll send it to Nick so he can put out a press release. Is that right?
Correct.
And I'll open it up for public comment. Anyone want to make any public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Any other information, County Administrator?
No, ma'am.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
I'd like to know right now if any of the commissioners are planning to vacate Manatee County. Carol will still be here, Manatee County. Charles, you're not sure?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Certainly,
Your house.
if the storm comes through here, we may lose our home, one of them at least. But my concern is that, and I know you've committed that you're not leaving, and I know it's your responsibility. I'm very concerned if all of us leave Manatee County
Right.
and something,
None of us.
and
I'm sure Commissioner Trace won't leave. She never leaves the county.
Steve isn't leaving.
Steve, are you gonna find a high and dry place?
No, I'm not in an A zone, so I'm okay.
Okay.
And if not, I talked with my daughter, and she works out at Honor, and Benderson's moving all their animals to one of their facilities on 301. So if it gets bad, I'll just go over there and hang out
Okay.
with them over in.
Yeah, speaking of the
Yeah.
animals, we have a plan for them as well. They're not in an A zone at the shelter.
Correct.
Again, when you're evacuating and you're going to a shelter, make sure you have your containers for your pets, a cage. There are certain shelters that allow pets, and there are 3 of them that will allow pets. They are Braden River, they are,
Manatee High and Mills Elementary.
okay, Mills Elementary is in north of the
Palmetto,
river.
correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and Manatee is city, and Braden River is East County.
7.
And then there'll be some schools probably opening, you'll know later today, and which schools will allow pets?
Those 3.
Just those 3, okay. And you don't know yet if you'll be.
No, I don't know. I'll wait and make the call, but I'll
Okay.
be getting out before Friday.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not
You'll
sure.
just all let me
But
know
I
where
had a
you'll
question
be.
to the director, Madam
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay, and then the county administrator, are you planning to stay?
Yes.
County attorney, are you planning to stay, or are you gonna be back there? Okay, so, if our places, aren't high and dry, we can bring a cot to the EOC, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think so.
You supposed to be there? My question is to the director. I noticed we didn't mention anything about development and people with different large stuff out that can fly and things like that. Do that cover the security where people who are building basically don't stop building right now? I was looking in Hillsborough, I think it included developments and things had to secure their property to make sure stuff just don't go to flying and flight.
We'll do our best to educate those folks in advance and encourage them to do that, but it'll be up to them to secure those materials.
And we've been getting emails from like the home builders that they're at the ready to help as well, and other organizations.
Correct.
I hope Red Cross steps it up a little bit better than they did last week.
Red Cross, how about the county?
Big shout out to the churches that went into Center Lake, and Bayside Church was awesome over the weekend, and some other folks were out there. So anyone who needs to contact me, my cell phone's always on, 941-685-5368. Robin.DiSabatino, DISABATINO @mymanatee.org. Anything else for the good of the order?
I just have one more comment. I want to make sure that the meeting we have tomorrow is the only duly government meeting we have this week. We don't have anything else I'm overlooking.
And not at the moment, sir.
Okay, okay. I want to be sure, okay.
Right, no workshops, no anything else, so hopefully we'll be quick tomorrow at our land use meeting. And anything else, Mr. Smith?
Oh, ma'am.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 9:30. Okay.